of the self, merely as a manifestation of the whole. The debate goes on, leading toward absurd ideas about shared existing or not existing and so on. How boring. It is, however, most interesting that poet's scientific consciousness and his universal perception of reality in recent times has been demonstrated to be correct by means of a set of very ingenious actual modern-day scientific experiments. By celebrating 160 years of the great poet, it is pertinent to remind ourselves the revolution by science bled effortless, the essential and universal philosophy of reality. Gurudev was remarkably bold, almost outrageous in his assertion of self with universality, the reality and its true relevance. The most dramatic manifestation of the singular universal consciousness of the poet is expressed, rather popular, profoundly universal, is subtly disguised poem entitled, not surprisingly, I. Clearly, singular I. The color of my consciousness turned emerald to green, ruby turned crimson. I looked into the sky, the light was lit. Across the east and the west, I looked at the roses and said, beautiful. They became beautiful. It is neither vanity nor arrogance, since my consciousness is an intrinsic part of infinite consciousness, and thus I am. The poet almost startled the world when he exclaimed, the universe is like a spider's nest, and our mind is a spider. Mind is singular, yet plural at the same time. Another noble winner, Ilya Prigozhin, made a most insightful comment. The question of meaning of reality is the eternal subject of the fascinating dialogue between Einstein and Tagore, he said. Einstein emphasized that science has to be independent of the existence of the observer, later about incorrectness of the concept. This led him to deny the reality of time as irreversible. On the contrary, Tagore maintained that even if absolute truth could exist, it would be inaccessible to human mind. Curiously enough, the present evolution of science, because she said, turning towards was stated by the great poet. A small anecdote here, when Saha Institute, this institute, was housed in a PC Road, Acharya PC Road, there was an auditorium, and because he gave a talk, house was full, more than full. And this point he was making, that there is Belgian-American accent, and when Rabindranath Tagore, and there was a washerman outside who was cleaning the clothes, with an enormous noise of beating the clothes outside. And that contradicted Prigozhin's great exposure of his idea of Tagore and Einstein. Such is the reality, other reality. The poet's perception of the universal consciousness, long years ago, was ridiculed by Macrocosmos as most extraordinarily strong word, as mumbo jumbo. Suddenly, like the awakening of the waterfall, the poet's outlook turns to right, absolutely right. Ilya Prigozhin's prediction turns out to be the correct one. We get carried away understandably by Rabindranath's music. We hardly pay any attention to the words and the philosophy of those words. of us pause and wonder the fathomless beauty of those immortal words which you heard at the beginning of the conference. The cosmic dome with all the stars and the sun, limitless light across the universe. I found myself in the center, wonder of all wonders, with oscillating universe, Kumon Dole. I sometimes ask young cynical scientists, what does it mean, Kumon Dole, universe oscillating? In a swing? No. What does it mean? The ultimate of all reality, universe, the music ripples through like an uncontrollable stream through the depth of every word. We remain without any effort to understand the depth of the words. The ultimate reality is, of course, death. And Spinoza's word is saying there is nothing less discussed in human being than death, which is, of course, one of the most fascinating phenomena. Death, to me, like others, is far more interesting than birth. If a man and woman copulates, birth is sort of inevitable, but death is not. And indeed, what happens after death? In fact, I was reading a book some other day, the Jagadish Chandra Bose and Rabindranath discussing at long length the purpose and future of death. And it's another horrific. But about the universe has gone planet called the Earth belongs. What about it? Singularity space-time, usually referred to as a Big Bang, is the creation of the universe. The ultimate plurality, the universe was also all infinite manifestation. The galaxies, the black holes, the white dwarfs, the supernova, the infinite of it all. And that philosophy, probably you noticed, is slowly and surely changing. And other Plato says, cyclic universe. The infinity of it all, in the concept of fatal attraction, is depicted by the ancient Hindus as Maya. However, the infiniteness of the universal consciousness turns the Mayatic plurality of creation. Once again, singular consciousness. The very point of creation is a manifestation of Macrocosmos. The form of Microcosmos is very sponge of creation. Thus, Gitanjali and many of his songs and poems, Rabindranath wanted to bridge the gap between the finite and the infinite, the microcosmos and macrocosmos, the personal manifestation in the free spirit of omnipresent, emergent of transcendence. We are now looking at the macrocosmos, the very beginning of the universe, by doing experiments observed, which Yoga discussed. In Geneva, through the kaleidoscope, a mini bang of two nuclei mimicking the Big Bang. The universe, a millionth of second after creation, is captured by a millionth and millionth of second after collision of two nuclei, the large hadron collider. I don't know why young people are getting excited. You are actually capturing a sort of a replica of the very early stage of the universe in the laboratory. If you perceive that happening in your lifetime only once, that's good enough in life. At a stroke, universal consciousness is brought within the realm of scientific rigor or experiments. The fusion of the macrocosmos and macrocosmos, the subject matter of this conference, the reflection of macro on the macro, and indeed the image of macro onto micro. The poet perceived a completely complementary, yet very powerful, very different horizon of perception. thou art infinite within the finite. Pray, pray, the tune, pray on. Shimar Maze Oshim to be Badawa Purush. He was fascinated this dichotomy, if you like. The within Shima boundary, limited, you see the glory of infinity. And that comes back in science, contemporary science, again and again. Rabindranath's man thus is a finite, yet infinite being. He is earth's child, but heaven's heir. I am pleased to bring to your notice, to my knowledge, an unpublished poem the poet Gurudev wrote when he visited our ancestral home in Backwara in 1938. The tender glow of light across the infinite sky is seeking its limit in the dewdrops on the blades of grass. This he wrote, as I said, at Backwara. Rabindranath man thus is finite yet infinite, being the child of heaven's heir. With time, man will grow even more self-centered. Heaven's heir will then rise to give us much needed peace, tranquility, and the universal meaning of life, both finite and infinite at the same time. I end with the universality of Tagore's reality, so brilliant in a poem Aroko, when he's getting better after illness, with the flavor of universal entanglement. On the endless canvas of infinite creation, the far vast light lit up across the sky, with the stars of the sun transcending ages effortlessly. To the ages, hundreds of actors have left their colorful dress outside the theater door, with the backdrop of thousands of stars, dead and without a twinkle. I notice Nataraj is silent and alone. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Sinha. And now can I ask Dr. Dattagupta to explain to us the imprints of science in Tagore's
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. I need the honor because I'm grateful to Dr. Sinha for outlining the vision of TCNSP. As was mentioned just now, one of the objectives of TCNSP is to take science to the schools of Bengal. Well, this was probably not explicitly mentioned, but this is what we wanted to do, especially in rural areas. This will be more effective, we feel, if the vernacular is used as the medium of communication. Unfortunately, this project was hampered over the last 2 years in view of the outbreak of the pandemic. Am I audible to the device? Yeah. But if I'm too loud, you also give me an indication, right? As is well known, Rabindranath Tagore himself was a strong proponent of employing Bengali as a language of science. This is exemplified in his illustrious book on science, Mishra Porichoy, Introduction to the Universe, described by Bikash. The famous Bengali physicist Satyendra Bose, to whom Vishwa Purichaya is dedicated, also subscribed to this vision. Given this motivation, I now come to amplify the title of this lecture, Imprints of Science in Tagore's Music. Why Tagore's music? If you do a quick survey here, you will discern that every Bengali, if not an accomplished singer, is an avid listener to Tagore's songs, popularly known as Robin Songit, and may even be given to humming, perhaps under the showers. It's not an exaggeration to say that Robin Songit is an inseparable part and parcel of the Bengali existence. Additionally, if you consider the fact that a large percentage of the world's population spread not just over West Bengal and Bangladesh, but also the wide diaspora of Bengalis all over, as Bengali as their mother tongue, then it is easy to surmise that Tagore's music or Robin Songit can be utilized as a very effective means of spreading, if not hard science, but at least a deep awareness of science. Is that realistically possible? In the next half hour or 40 minutes or so, we will dwell on this poser. Before we do this, it's perhaps pertinent, but may turn out to be redundant to this gathering of learned physicists to qualify what is science and who is a scientist. If I ask myself, a physicist, we came through years of systematic training in schools, colleges, and universities. First, it was Newtonian mechanics and electromagnetism, and as we graduated to colleges and universities, we were exposed to quantum mechanics, relativity, thermodynamics, and statistical mechanics. Following that, we had our advanced courses in quantum field theory and condensed matter physics. The employed tool was mathematics, firmly rooted in logic. Furthermore, we carried out laboratory experiments to validate these topics. But apart from the foundational issues, we learned that it is equally significant to apply our acquired knowledge to materials and biological sciences leading up to technology and medicines. It's important to clarify at the outset that Rabindranath Tagore did not possess any such rigorous training in science. As a matter of fact, he didn't even have formal training in school. Where Tagore is in sync with us, trained physicists, is in the realm of observation. But that is not through laboratory instruments such as telescopes, microscopes, and spectroscopes, but the sensory organs. When it came to Tagore, Rabindranath was a very keen student of nature all his life. In fact, the schools he established in Shantiniketan were set up in the midst of nature, wherein through open-air classes, the students were exposed to rudimentary knowledge of science such as ecology, entomology, and what we call basic environmental sciences. And it is the understanding of natural phenomena which is one of the principal aims of us natural scientists too. Without formal knowledge of physics, Tagore had raised certain deep issues on reality measurements with Einstein during their 5 meetings in 1926 and 1930 in Kaputz near Berlin. And this is a photo of Einstein and Tagore. In the preface to S.N. Bose and Vishwa Purichaya that Tagore authored between 1934 and 1937, I should tell you, some younger people here, that positron, the antiparticle of electron predicted from the Dirac theory, was discovered by Anderson in 1932. But Tagore was keeping himself so abreast of the developments, even staying in Shantiniketan and Shilaidaho, that he mentions positron in Vishwa Purichaya. And from this I translate, and I think part of that has been already said by Vikash. It's essential for those, I'm doing multitasking here, it is essential for those who have begun learning to enter at least the portals of science, if not its hub. There's nothing demeaning in taking the support of literature to facilitate this preparatory introduction to science. That is why I've taken this responsibility myself. I've not been a devoted scholar of science, but from my childhood, I had this endless desire to taste the nectar of science. I was about 12. Have some patience with me. I was just about 12 when I traveled with my father to the Dalhousie Hills. After the day's hard work, journeying over the hills, we would come back to the dak bungalow in the evening and settle down on a divan in the courtyard. As we sat and watched, the stars seemed to descend around us in the translucent darkness of the deep blue sky fenced in by the hills. Father would identify the stars and planets for me, not merely identifying them, for he would also tell me the distance of their orbits from the sun, how long it would take for a complete revolution, and a lot of other relevant details. Tagore spans the actual text with a suggestion of the limits of human vision. The sun has cast a drapery of light around the earth, shutting us off from a view of whatever exists beyond the earth. When the day ends, the sun sets, the drapery of light is lifted, and it is only then that innumerable stars stare to the mantle of darkness. Then only we realize that the boundaries of the universe extend far beyond the earth, but we cannot conceive how far it reaches. Among the stars in the middle of the night sky, one finds patches of light clustered around the stars called the Milky Way. Powerful telescopes have revealed that the Milky Way comprises billions of stars. There is really nothing called darkness. Those that are invisible also possess light. There is incessant emanation of radiation of different colors, even from the dark ends of the universe. Though a far distance away, stars make their presence felt through light, some visible, some however invisible to the naked eye. Incidentally, Tagore's first publication as a teenager was on science, a piece on astronomy that appeared in the Bengali magazine Tattwabodhini. At one point in Vishwapurichoy, Tagore comes to the question of the mode of the travel of light. He finds the answer fascinating. Light travels as waves. It is difficult to fathom the nature of this wave. But soon, as if to perplex the human mind further, another body of data supported by firm evidence offered a contrasting view of light as consisting of innumerable corpuscles or tiny particles in a state of constant shower of very minute objects. These minute objects, as is well known to this audience, are called bosons after the name of S.N. Bose. Referring to waves and particles, Tagore raises the questions: how does one reconcile the